Good evening, night owls. You're tuned into Midnight Radio Horror, your quiet companion through the rain and the dark. Tonight's story comes from a man who moved into an old apartment complex, one that's far too quiet for comfort. He thought the worst thing about his new place would be the leaky pipes or creaky floors. But sometimes, silence hides something worse, something listening. Before we begin, grab your blanket, dim the lights, and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And remember, if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like and subscribe for more nightly chills. Now, let's begin.
I moved into 7B of the Alder Apartments on a Sunday afternoon. Cheap old building, but the rent was low and I was desperate. The landlord, Mr. Patel, handed me the keys with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome home," he said. "You'll find it's quiet here." He wasn't kidding. After I unpacked, I realized I could hear everything. My footsteps, the fridge hum, even my own heartbeat when I lay down. No traffic, no neighbors arguing. Nothing. Just silence. That first night, I went to bed around midnight. But at exactly 12:37 a.m., I heard footsteps above me. Slow, steady pacing. Back and forth. The ceiling creaked like old wood under heavy boots. I didn't think much of it. Someone moving furniture, maybe. But when I asked Patel about it the next morning, his expression froze. "There's no one above you," he said flatly. "The top floor's been closed for years. Fire damage." I laughed, but he didn't. "Seriously?" I asked. "Then who was walking around last night?" He just shook his head. "Old buildings make noise. Don't worry about it." That night I couldn't sleep. I left the light on and waited. 12:37 a.m. Right on time. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps were heavier this time. Slower. Almost dragging. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, trying to pinpoint the direction. The sound stopped directly above my bed. And then 3 knocks. Top, top, top. I shot upright. The knocks came again, perfectly spaced. I looked up and whispered, "Hello." Silence. Then a faint creak, as if someone leaned down to listen. The next morning, I climbed the stairs to the top floor. The door to the upper hall was padlocked and covered in old warning tape. I pressed my ear against it. Nothing but a low, hollow hum. But just as I turned to leave, thump, something hit the door from the other side. I sprinted downstairs, locked my door, and didn't move for the rest of the day. When night fell, I tried drowning the sounds with music, but the footsteps began again, in rhythm with the beat, as if whoever was up there was mocking me. I unplugged everything and sat in silence. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint but real. "You hear me now." I froze. The voice came from directly above my ceiling fan, and then the lights flickered once, twice before going dark. The last thing I heard before everything went black was a quiet laugh. Not loud, not menacing, just wrong, like it was inside my apartment. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch until dawn, lights flickering above me every few minutes. Every time I looked up, I half expected to see something staring down through the ceiling fan blades. When the sun finally rose, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Stress, lack of sleep. The building was old, right? Pipes expand, floors creak, wires hum. That's all. By afternoon, I almost believed it, until I found the note. It was slipped under my door. A single sheet of lined paper, folded twice. "No envelope." The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. It read, "Stop talking to her. She listens through the walls." That was it. No signature. No explanation. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. I hadn't talked to anyone, not since moving in. I went straight to the landlord's office. Mr. Patel wasn't there. The door was open, the lights off, a faint smell of mold hanging in the air. The calendar on the wall still showed August 2021. I went back to my apartment, locked the door, and decided to record what was happening. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and set it on the nightstand. If I could catch the noises, maybe I'd have proof for the landlord or maybe the police. Midnight came.
12:37 Uhr nachts.
Right on schedule. The footsteps started again. slow and deliberate. Back and forth, back and forth. Then silence. For a long moment, nothing. And then my phone vibrated. An unknown number. No caller ID. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. Static. Then a voice, faint and hollow. Don't go upstairs. I froze. Who is this? Static again. Then, you'll see her soon. The line went dead. I looked at the ceiling. The footsteps resumed, but now they were running. Heavy, fast, pounding footsteps racing from one end of the room to the other, shaking the ceiling dust loose. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it up. The ceiling fan was spinning, slowly, even though the switch was off. And then, clear as day, a single knock came from inside the vent on the far wall. I stepped closer, trembling. The vent cover was slightly bent, like someone had pried it open from the inside. When I crouched down, I heard it. A voice, soft, whispering through the metal. Help me. It was a woman's voice, fragile, desperate. I stammered, Who are you? The voice replied, She's pretending to be me. Then silence. A low creak echoed through the ceiling, and the light above me went out. I turned toward the window, trying to catch my breath. In the glass reflection, I could see my whole room behind me, faintly lit by my phone's glow. And for half a second, there was a figure standing in the corner, tall, still, head tilted, watching. When I spun around, nothing, just empty air and my pulse hammering in my ears. He begged to beg. I didn't care about rent or the deposit. I just needed to get out. I reached the front door and twisted the lock. It wouldn't budge. I pulled harder, nothing. The knob felt ice cold. Then the voice came again, right behind me. Leaving so soon? I turned. No one there, but the ceiling above the doorway cracked. Plaster rained down, and from the hole that split open, something pale hung down. A hand. Long fingers. Gray skin. Nails like broken glass. Clawed at the air, slow and twitching. I stumbled backward, slamming into the wall. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the hand withdrew. Silence again. The hole remained, gaping, like a wound in the ceiling. I sat there until dawn, shaking. When morning came, the hole was gone. The ceiling looked perfectly smooth, as if nothing had ever happened. But when I checked my phone recording from the night before, my blood went cold. The entire 3-hour clip was filled with faint breathing sounds. Not mine, not human. And in the very last second, right before it cut off, a woman's whisper, "You're in my room now." I didn't go to work the next day. Couldn't. Every time I looked at the ceiling, I half expected that pale hand to push through again. The hole was gone, the plaster smooth, but I knew it had been there. I had the video, the breathing, the whisper. By noon, I'd packed everything I could carry. I was done with Alder Apartments, but when I grabbed my keys and wallet, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The note, the one that said, "Stop talking to her." It was back on the floor. Only now, there was new writing beneath it, written in fresh, dark ink. "You're making her angry." That was enough. I threw open the door and stormed to the stairwell, heading straight for the locked top floor. I didn't care anymore. I had to know what was up there, who was walking, who was whispering, who was pretending. The padlock on the upstairs door was still there, covered in dust. But when I touched it, it clicked open like it had never been locked. The air inside was colder, heavier. It smelled like wet cement and rot. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped inside. The hallway stretched out in both directions, doors lining each side. Every door had a faded number plate, 8A, 8B, 8C, all the way down to 8H. The floorboards were warped, stained dark in places like old water damage. I walked slowly, calling out, "Hello!" No response, just the faint sound of dripping water somewhere far away. Then I saw it, one door slightly open. 8F, a sliver of darkness peering through. Pushed it open. Inside was a room almost identical to mine. Same layout, same wallpaper, same cracks in the ceiling. But there was furniture covered in white sheets, all yellowed with age. In the corner stood an old radio, unplugged, but softly hissing static. I stepped closer. The sound grew clearer. Not just static, but faint whispers beneath it. I leaned in, trying to catch the words. "Don't let her see you." I jerked back, heart racing. The radio wasn't plugged in, but it knew I was there. Something moved behind me. A small scrape, like a shoe brushing wood. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand. The door had closed, and behind it, faintly visible in the reflection of my phone screen, was the outline of a woman standing in the corner. Her head was lowered, her hair long and tangled, soaking wet. I could hear the sound of water dripping from her hair, from her hands. I whispered, "Who are you?" She didn't move, but the radio hissed louder, almost frantic, and the voice came again, this time through the static. "She's wearing my face." The woman raised her head. Her skin was pale and swollen, her eyes white and gleaming. And yes, she was wearing someone else's face. The edges didn't fit. The skin around the jaw looked torn, stitched roughly into place. She opened her mouth, but the sound that came out wasn't human. A distorted screech of static, the same tone as the radio, loud enough to make my ears bleed. I stumbled backward, tripping over the sheets. The flashlight spun across the floor, beam flickering over the walls, revealing words scrawled in black marker across the wallpaper. "Be quiet. She listens. She lives in the walls. She wears what she finds." The static scream stopped. When I looked up, the woman was gone. The room was empty except for the radio, now silent. I turned to leave, but the door wouldn't open. I pulled and kicked, but it was like something on the other side was holding it shut. Then a whisper came through the keyhole, low and familiar. My own voice. "Don't go downstairs." I froze. The whisper came again, mimicking my tone perfectly. "You'll bring her with you." I turned slowly toward the mirror hanging above the dresser. My reflection smiled, but I didn't. The reflection tilted its head, just slightly, as the glass began to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. And through the distortion, I could see her, the woman standing inside the mirror, reaching toward the other side. Her hand pressed against the glass. Cracks formed around it. That was when I ran. The door finally gave way, slamming open as I bolted into the hallway. The air behind me buzzed with static. Lights flickering like a storm was building inside the walls. I didn't stop until I reached the stairwell, gasping for breath. But when I looked down, the stairs didn't end. They spiraled endlessly, floor after floor after floor, all labeled 7B. My apartment number. Each door down there was mine, each one slightly open. And from every single one, I could hear it, thump, thump, thump. Footsteps, above me, below me, everywhere. And then, in the dark far below, I saw her face, pale, stretched, smiling. She whispered, "You can move out, but I'm still upstairs." I don't remember running. One moment I was staring down that endless stairwell, the next I was outside, or what looked like outside. My chest burned, my ears rang, and the cold night air felt wrong, like it was heavier somehow. Alder Apartments stood behind me, tall and silent. No lights in the windows. No sound but the faint hum of static that seemed to seep from the bricks themselves. I stumbled down the street, gasping for breath. Everything looked familiar, but off. The buildings across the road were there, but their windows were black, their signs blank. The air had a metallic taste. The streetlights flickered in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. I pulled out my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. No time displayed, just a blank, glowing screen. I started walking. Half a block down, I saw a man standing on the corner. He was dressed like any normal person. Hoodie, jeans, a backpack. But he wasn't moving, just staring straight ahead. "Hey," I called. "Do you know what's going on here?" He didn't respond. I got closer. That's when I saw it. His face wasn't facing me. His body was turned the other way, twisted completely around. I stumbled back, while rising in my throat. His jaw opened slowly, unnaturally, and a soft, familiar whisper came out. "You shouldn't have gone upstairs." I turned and ran. The street stretched longer the farther I moved, looping back on itself until I realized I was passing the same bus stop over and over. Same torn poster, same trash can, same flickering light. When I stopped, out of breath, the building beside me caught my eye. Alder Apartments. No matter where I went, I always ended up right back there. I tried the front door, screaming, banging, pulling, and it swung open on its own. Inside, the lobby was darker than before, the wallpaper peeling away in long strips. The air smelled like wet dirt. The floor glistened with something that looked like water but wasn't. And the silence, it was worse now. It wasn't the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of listening. Please, I whispered, just let me leave. Somewhere above me, a door creaked open. Footsteps again. Slow, dragging, coming down the stairs this time. I pressed myself against the wall, staring at the stairwell. A shape appeared at the landing, tall, thin, hair matted to one side, wearing clothes that looked exactly like mine. I stepped into the light. It was me. Same jacket, same jeans, same terrified expression. Except the eyes. They were blank, white, and endless. My voice came out of its mouth, slow and echoing, distorted like a recording played backward. She's not upstairs anymore. I backed away, followed, step for step, mimicking every movement I made until we were standing face to face. Then it smiled. A slow, broken smile that stretched too far. And from behind it, I saw her, the woman, her body dripping, her face pale beneath that sewn-on skin, her head tilted as if curious, watching me. Please, I said, what do you want? The doppelganger turned its head toward her. She leaned forward, whispering into its ear. It nodded. Then it reached out, its hand cold and damp, and touched my chest. Instantly, my vision blurred. The hallway around me rippled like heat haze. The walls twisted, stretching into long corridors that shouldn't exist. Then I was standing in my apartment again. 7B. Everything looked normal. The light was on, the fridge humming, the morning sun spilling through the window. Had I dreamt it? Hallucinated the whole thing? I grabbed my phone. The date said March 15th. I moved in on January 4th. 2 months gone. Before I could process it, there was a knock at my door. 3 sharp knocks. Talk, talk, talk. I froze. Then, a voice from the other side. Soft, calm, familiar. I'm your new neighbor. Just moved in upstairs. My heart stopped. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, shaking, staring at it. Another knock, louder this time. You hear me, right? I backed away, step by step, until I was pressed against the opposite wall. Then the voice whispered, right against the wood, as if her lips were touching it. I left something for you. The footsteps moved away, up the stairs. For a long moment, I couldn't move. Then I forced myself to open the door. A single object lay on the floor, a folded sheet of paper. I picked it up with trembling hands. One line written in the same frantic handwriting as before. You're upstairs now. I looked up at the ceiling. The light flickered, and from above, faint but clear, came my own voice whispering. You hear me walking, don't you? The knocking stopped days ago, or maybe weeks. I don't really know anymore. Time doesn't flow normally in this place. It just loops like an old tape rewinding and replaying the same seconds. At least that's how it feels from up here. Yes, I said up here, because I'm not in 7B anymore. I'm above it. At first, I thought I'd escaped, that somehow I'd survived the night, that maybe I'd just fallen asleep and woken up in someone else's apartment. But when I looked out the window, I saw the same view I always did. The same crooked street light, the same dead tree, except this time the angle was different. I was looking down on it. The apartment looks almost identical. Same layout, same furniture, but everything feels heavier, slower. Every sound carries, echoing too long, like the air is thicker up here. And sometimes, when I'm quiet enough, I can hear him, the other me, the one living below. He moves the same way I used to. I hear him breathing when he lies awake at night. I hear his footsteps pacing the kitchen floor when the power flickers. But the strange thing is, he never looks up. Not once. Maybe he can't. Maybe I'm not supposed to exist anymore. Sometimes I catch myself moving in rhythm with him, step for step. When he sits, I sit. When he eats, I eat. Though there's nothing here but dust and the faint smell of mold. It's like something is making sure I mirror him. Like I'm a reflection behind the ceiling. And when he talks, the words echo up through the floorboards a few seconds later. Like the world is lagging. 2 nights ago, I heard him crying. His voice cracked the way mine used to. Desperate, terrified. He said, "Please, I just wanted to stop." And before I could stop myself, I answered, "I can't help you." He froze. I heard the floorboards creak as he looked up. And then, for the first time since I got trapped up here, I heard him whisper back, "Who's there?" I didn't mean to speak. I don't think I was the one who did. Something moved through me. That same coldness I'd felt before. That static hum in my ears. I tried to stay quiet after that. But the building doesn't like silence. When I stop moving, I start to hear it. Faint whispers crawling through the walls. The woman, the one who wore the face, she talks to me now. She says, "You belong here. Someone has to walk the floors." When I ask what she means, she laughs softly. They hear the noise and think it's the house settling, but it's us. It's always been us. Last night, the power flickered again. I saw the reflection of my apartment in the window, only it wasn't mine. The light was coming from below, my old place. The other me was standing in the center of the room, staring straight up at the ceiling, right where I was standing, and I could see him, clear as day, through the warped glass between us. He whispered something I couldn't hear, so I leaned closer to the floorboards, pressing my ear against them. That's when I realized he was recording. He had his phone out just like I did before, trying to catch the sound, trying to prove I was real. And then I heard it, my own voice echoing through his phone. It said, "You hear me walking, don't you?" That's when I understood. The footsteps weren't a haunting. They were a warning. Someone always ends up upstairs. Someone always ends up walking. Someone always becomes the noise. I think the building needs it, like it feeds on the loop, keeping the pattern alive. The tenant below hears the one above, loses their mind, moves out or disappears, and then takes their place. Alder Apartments isn't haunted by ghosts. It's haunted by echoes. And now, I'm one of them. The woman comes less often now. But when she does, she crawls through the ceiling vents, whispering names. She says the next tenant is coming soon. A new one. A woman this time. She said her name softly, like a secret. Clara. Tonight. I can already hear boxes dragging on the floor below me. Furniture being moved. Laughter. The sound of someone settling in. And when the clock hits 12:37 a.m., the floorboards below will creak for the first time. Thump, thump, thump. I'll start walking, and she'll hear me, and the cycle will start again. When I first moved into 7B, I thought I'd finally caught a break. Cheap rent, quiet neighborhood, and a landlord who didn't care about much besides getting the deposit. It wasn't perfect. The walls were old, the lights buzzed, but I could finally breathe. That first night, I slept like a rock. At least, until 12:37 a.m. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps, right above me. I thought it was normal, maybe another tenant moving in late. But when I asked Mr. Patel the next morning, he just stared at me, blank face. "Top floor's closed," he said. "Fire damage years ago." I laughed, waiting for the punchline. He didn't smile. That's when I noticed his hands trembling. He looked like he wanted to say more, but stopped himself. "Best to ignore it," he muttered, "or it won't stop." That night, I left the light on. I kept glancing at the ceiling, waiting. Nothing. Until 12:37 again. The footsteps started slow, steady, like someone pacing. I held my breath and listened. The rhythm was strange, too deliberate, too heavy. Then 3 sharp knocks above my bed. Top, top, top. My skin went cold. I whispered, "Hello," and to my horror, there was an answer. Don't listen to her. It was a man's voice, weak, echoing through the plaster. I froze. Who's there? Silence. Then, a faint scraping sound, like fingernails dragging across the ceiling. And a whisper, softer this time. She hears everything. I didn't sleep after that. Over the next few nights, it got worse. The lights flickered. My phone kept glitching. Random bursts of static when I tried to record the sounds. And then I started finding notes slipped under my door. The first said, "Don't go upstairs." The second, "She wants your face." I tried to convince myself it was a prank. Maybe one of the neighbors trying to scare me. But I never saw anyone in the hall. The mailboxes were empty except for mine. By the fifth night, I'd had enough. I called the police. 2 officers came by, checked the place out. One of them, a tall guy with tired eyes, asked where I was hearing the noise. "Above me," I said. "There's someone walking up there." He looked at his partner, then back at me. "Ma'am, there is no upstairs." I didn't understand. "What are you talking about? There's a whole floor above this one." He shook his head. "The top floor was sealed off after the fire in 2021. It's just ceiling and insulation above you now. They left after 10 minutes. No report. No answers." But that night, the footsteps came again. And for the first time, I heard crying. Soft, broken sobs. A man's voice. I pressed my hand against the ceiling. "Hello? Are you okay?" The crying stopped. Then a whisper. "She's behind you." I turned. Nothing. The apartment was still. Then I heard the doorknob rattle. Once, twice. I backed away slowly, and then something knocked from the inside of the closet. 3 sharp knocks. I ran to the door, but before I could unlock it, a voice came from behind me. The same man's voice as before, trembling but urgent. "She's wearing me. Please, don't open the door." I froze. A shadow slid under the crack of the closet door, thin, long, and moving like smoke. It stretched across the floor toward my feet. The light flickered. I reached for the switch, but the bulb burst, showering sparks. The room went black, and in that darkness, I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Heavy. Then, I backed away until my hand brushed the doorknob. Cold, slick, like something had been touching it from the other side. Then a whisper, right in my ear. "Your turn to walk." Everything went silent. When I turned on my phone flashlight, the closet door was open. Inside, there was only one thing. A small, crumpled piece of paper pinned to the wall with a rusted nail. It read, "She's coming down." The night was thick, heavy with the smell of damp wood and something metallic. Rain tapped faintly against my window, but it felt distant, almost as if it were happening somewhere else. I sat on the edge of the bed, the folded note trembling in my hand. "She's coming down." I didn't know what it meant. Who was she? The woman? Or the man? Or something else? I tried to calm myself. Maybe it was the building. Maybe it was my imagination. I told myself I needed to see to understand. At exactly 12:37 a.m., I heard them. Footsteps. Soft at first, then deliberate, pacing across the ceiling. They weren't fast, not threatening, but precise, almost intentional. I followed the sound through the hallway. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it would give me away. Then I noticed it, the closet door, slightly ajar. I had ignored it all night, avoided it. But tonight, something compelled me to look. Inside, nothing at first, just shadows stretching across the walls, warped by my flashlight. Then I saw it. A figure crouched in the corner, wet hair sticking to a pale face. She wasn't moving like a human. Her body was rigid, unnatural, but her eyes were wide, filled with panic, like she was trying to get my attention. "She's trapped," a voice whispered behind me. My own voice, but hoarse, trembling. "Ispun." The hallway was empty, no one there. I turned back. The woman in the closet was gone. Then I heard it, a soft scraping along the ceiling, footsteps moving toward the bedroom. Not me, but something else. I realized then, the footsteps weren't trying to scare me. They were leading me somewhere. I followed them, crawling on my hands and knees, listening to each creak, each tap. They led me to the apartment door. I paused. A soft whimper came through the keyhole. "Please," it said. "Help me." I hesitated, then opened the door. The hallway stretched before me, familiar yet wrong. The ceiling above was warped, bending like liquid. Each apartment number flickered in the dim light. 7B. 7B again, and again. Endless repetitions. Then I saw her. The woman, pale and soaked, face torn and stitched. But she didn't move toward me. She crouched, cornered in front of one of the repeating doors, staring down at the floor. From the ceiling, the footsteps started again, soft, almost gentle, pacing in a pattern. Top, top, purse, top. And then I understood. They weren't haunting me. They weren't trying to harm me. They were warning me of the thing that lives inside the walls of Alder Apartments. The thing that wears faces, mimics voices, feeds on fear, and traps souls upstairs, turning them into echoes. The footsteps led me closer. I knelt down, listening to each tap, each creak. I reached toward the woman. She can't escape on her own. A whisper echoed from the ceiling. My own voice again, trembling, desperate. "You have to help her." I took her hand. Cold. Vip. Alive but barely. Suddenly, the hallway shifted. The repeating doors twisted into one continuous wall. The woman was pressed against it. Pulled her toward me. Behind the wall, I heard a rasping breath. A voice that wasn't hers, but sounded like mine. "You shouldn't have found me." And then the footsteps began to pound, heavy, deliberate, coming down from above. Faster, closer. The wall groaned. Plaster fell in chunks. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. I yanked the woman through the warped hallway. The footsteps chased us, echoing endlessly. I felt a hand brush my shoulder. Not hers. Cold, wet, too long. I ran. I reached a door that looked normal, like it belonged in the real world. I opened it. Light spilled in. And then I was outside. Rain poured down, soaking me. The building behind me looked abandoned, lifeless. The woman I dragged behind me collapsed. Alive, shivering. Who are you?" she whispered. I didn't know. I only knew one thing. Alder Apartments wasn't done yet. And the footsteps, the echoes, they were waiting for the next tenant. This is where the horror deepens with the past victim's story. The rain soaked us to the bone, but I didn't care. The woman, Clara as she called herself, clung to me, trembling. We stayed on the street outside Alder Apartments, staring at the building. It loomed like a dark monolith, silent now, too quiet. She shivered and whispered, You said it was abandoned, right? That no one's up there." I nodded. "It's complicated. There's something living in the walls. Something that wears faces, mimics voices, and traps people upstairs. It uses footsteps to warn or lure them." Clara's eyes widened. Footsteps. I explained everything, the notes, the whispered warnings, the endless loops of 7B, the shadows in the closet. Every detail. When I finished, she said, "We need to know why. There has to be a reason it's doing this." I didn't answer. I didn't want to, but she was right. There had to be a history behind this horror. We spent the next day researching. At the local library, we dug through old newspapers, building permits, fire reports, anything mentioning Alder Apartments. What we found made my stomach twist. The building had a long, dark history. A fire in 2021 had destroyed the top floor. Officially, it was sealed. No one lived there since. But the building was older than that, nearly 80 years. There were reports dating back to the 1950s. Tenants disappearing, unexplained deaths, whispers of the upstairs. One particularly chilling report from 1963 described a tenant who claimed someone was walking above him, copying my life. He disappeared within a week. The police found his apartment empty, but strange footprints were pressed into the ceiling plaster. Another report, 1977. A young woman claimed she was being followed by footsteps that echoed her own. Neighbors heard screams for days, but when police arrived, the apartment was empty. Her body was never found. And again in 1999, A man moved in on January 4th. He complained about a neighbor upstairs. The landlord assured him there was no one there. He vanished by March 15th. No trace, except a series of crumpled notes found under his door. Stop talking to her. You're upstairs now. Clara gasped. It's the same pattern. I nodded. Every tenant upstairs becomes the next echo. Every time someone new moves in, the cycle starts again. She shivered. Then, what we experienced. It's been happening for decades. I swallowed hard. It's not just the fire. The fire may have made it stronger. The entity, it feeds on fear, on attention. It can trap anyone who listens too closely to the footsteps. Clara's hands shook. But what about the woman in the closet? The one you saved? I don't know, I admitted. She was trapped inside, maybe one of the previous echoes. The footsteps, they were trying to guide me to her. Her eyes widened. So the footsteps aren't just warnings. They're guides. I nodded slowly. Yes, if you listen carefully, if you follow them instead of ignoring them, you might survive. That night, we returned to Alder Apartments. I was hesitant, but Clara insisted. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand. Inside, the building smelled of mold and wet plaster. The air was heavier, colder. Every step we took echoed unnaturally. The hallway looked the same, warped, endless, repeating. But the moment we entered, the footsteps started. Top, purser, top. Clara froze. They're coming from above me. I nodded. Don't panic. Follow them. Step where they step. We moved carefully, mirroring the rhythm. The floor creaked under our weight, responding to the invisible presence above. Shadows flickered across the walls. At the end of the hall, we found the closet, the same one I had opened before. The door was ajar. Inside, nothing, except for one object on the floor. A stack of papers, yellowed with age. Notes from previous tenants. Hundreds of them spanning decades. Every message scratched in frantic handwriting. Some wet with mold. Some nearly illegible. Stop listening. Don't follow the steps. She wears my face. I'm upstairs now, Clara whispered. All these people trapped, and now it's us. I nodded grimly. But maybe we can break the cycle. The footsteps grew louder, approaching from above. Top, purser, top. We stood still, listening. The rhythm told a story, not of harm, but of fear, of warning. It guided us. We followed it, step by step, through the warped hallway. And at the end, we saw it. A faint outline behind the ceiling vent. Pale, soaked, and trembling. The woman, the one I had saved before. She stared at us, eyes wide with relief and terror. She's guiding us, I whispered. Clara nodded. We have to follow her. The footsteps changed, faster, urgent. Not chasing, but leading. We stepped carefully, listening, moving with the rhythm of decades of echoes, hoping, praying, that this time we wouldn't become part of the cycle. Because Alder Apartments doesn't forget. It doesn't release its tenants. It just waits for someone brave or foolish enough to listen. The stack of notes trembled under Clara's fingers as we stepped back into the hallway. The footsteps above us had shifted, faster now, but deliberate, guiding us. Top, purser, top. This way, I whispered. Follow the rhythm. Don't stray. The hallway warped around us, stretching and twisting as if the building itself were alive. The walls pulsed, shadows slithering across the peeling wallpaper. Every step felt wrong, like walking through water, yet there was no wetness. The ceiling stretched and compressed, the lights flickering in sync with our heartbeat. Clara gripped my arm. It's trying to trap us. I know, I said, but the footsteps, they're still guiding us. We have to trust them. We moved slowly, step by step, following the pattern. The rhythm grew louder, echoing through the floorboards. Top, purser, top. It felt almost like it was communicating, a code we were finally beginning to understand. At the end of the hallway, a staircase descended. Not the one I'd used before, but another impossibly narrow, spiraling downward, fading into darkness. The footsteps led us to it. We paused. I could feel the presence above us. The air pulsed with it. The static hum was deafening. Clara whispered, trembling, "What if it's a trap?" I swallowed hard. "Then we'll fall together. But we have to go." Step by step, we descended. The stairs felt endless. Each step echoed, vibrating through the walls. The building seemed to resist, shifting beneath us. The shadows grew taller, following our every movement. And then, the laughter, soft at first, like wind through the vents, then louder, colder, dripping with malice. "She's coming," Clara whispered. The staircase widened into a narrow hallway, one we hadn't seen before. The walls were covered with mirrors, reflecting infinite versions of ourselves. Each reflection moved slightly out of sync, twisted, pale, and wet. The footsteps didn't just echo now. They multiplied, surrounding us from every reflection, every angle. We reached the last mirror at the end of the hall. The footsteps stopped. Silence. And then a whisper from the mirror. "You can't leave." I froze. Clara gripped my arm tighter. The mirror rippled like water, and through it I saw the woman. Pale, soaked, stitched face standing on the other side. But she wasn't moving toward us. She was trapped, just like all the others. Her eyes pleaded with us. "Follow the steps," I said to Clara. The mirror cracked. The shadows behind it shifted. Then the footsteps resumed, slower, deliberate. "Top, top, person, top." We moved with them, pressing our hands against the mirrored walls, listening to the rhythm. It guided us to a door at the far end. The door looked ordinary, plain wood, metal handle. I hesitated. "This is it. Our exit, maybe." Clara nodded, swallowing. "Let's go." We turned the handle. The door opened. Lights filled in, warm, real light. Sunlight, outside air. Rain falling softly. We stepped through. The door slammed behind us. We were outside. The street stretched before us, normal, quiet. Alder Apartments loomed behind, silent, still. But when I looked back, it was wrong. The building's top floor was open, windows black and empty, shifting like liquid. A figure leaned out from one of them. Tall, pale, hair wet, stitched face glinting in the dim light. And from inside the top floor, I could hear it, the footsteps. "Top, top, person, top." They were still moving, waiting, watching. I pulled Clara away, sprinting down the street. The city around us looked normal, but the air hummed faintly with static, like the building was reaching for us. We didn't stop until we reached the nearest 24-hour diner. Inside, the neon lights buzzed. Warm coffee steam filled the air. Real, living people sat at tables. For the first time in days, I could breathe. Clara looked at me, pale and trembling. "Do you think it's over?" I shook my head. "I don't know. Alder Apartments doesn't let anyone go completely, but maybe we survived. This time." Outside, through the diner window, I saw the building again. Silent now, still, waiting, and somewhere deep inside, I could almost hear it, soft, deliberate, tap, tap, pause, tap. The footsteps will never stop. They just wait, and one day, they'll find the next tenant. If you want, I can continue with part 10, where Clara and the narrator start investigating the building's past tenants in detail, learning about the first victim, and uncovering a way that might permanently break the cycle. Days passed, but neither Clara nor I could sleep properly. The memory of Alder Apartments haunted every corner of our minds. Every time the wind rattled a window or a floorboard creaked in our own apartments, I imagined the footsteps. Tap, tap, pause, tap. We decided to dig deeper. If we wanted to truly survive, we had to understand the building's history and the source of the echoes. We returned to the library, poring over old newspapers, fire records, and city archives. And then we found something new, something that changed everything. The earliest report of the building didn't start in the 1950s, as we had thought. It went back to 1942. A man named Elias Moreau had built the top floor as a personal apartment. He was a recluse, obsessed with auditory experiments. He believed that human consciousness could be trapped and transmitted through sound patterns, footsteps, echoes, rhythmic tapping. According to the report, Moreau's tenants had started disappearing almost immediately after he moved in. Witnesses claimed they heard footsteps above them, but the top floor was supposedly empty. No one dared check. Moreau died under mysterious circumstances in 1946. They found him in the sealed attic, but his body was grotesquely malformed, as if he had been stitched into the walls themselves. The report hinted at something worse. Moreau had been experimenting with echo consciousness, transferring awareness between floors, from body to body. He believed that if he could map the rhythm of footsteps perfectly, he could trap souls in the building indefinitely. Clara stared at me wide-eyed. It's why the building traps people. The footsteps. They're the patterns he left behind. I nodded grimly. Everything we experienced, the reflections, the mirrors, the echoes, it's all part of his experiment. We didn't just hear the footsteps. We became part of them. The deeper we dug, the more we realized the horror of it. Every previous tenant, every note left behind, every whispered warning. It was all part of a centuries-old cycle, maintained by the building itself and the echoes of Elias Moreau. And the woman in the closet? Clara asked quietly. She was a previous echo, I said. Someone who survived long enough to guide us, but she's still trapped between the walls and the ceiling. Her consciousness is part of the building now. She can't leave, but she can warn. We spent the next night at Clara's apartment planning. She insisted we return, not to confront the building, but to find the woman and free her. We gathered recording devices, lights, and notebooks. We traced the exact pattern of footsteps I had memorized, the rhythm that had saved us before. Back at Alder Apartments, the hallway stretched before us like a living nightmare. Top, top, perse, top. The rhythm echoed perfectly. I whispered it to Clara. She mimicked it step by step. The building seemed to resist, warping and twisting, but we pressed on, following the rhythm through the warped hallways. Finally, we reached the top floor, sealed, black, silent. The air hummed with static. Shadows stretched unnaturally, reaching for us. And then, in the corner, we saw her, the woman. She was crouched, pale, soaked, stitched face barely recognizable. Her eyes met ours. Relief flickered across them. She can hear you, I whispered. Clara stepped forward, holding out her hand. We're here to help you. The woman hesitated. Then, slowly, she began to rise. The ceiling above trembled. The static hummed louder. Top, top, perse, top. I realized that to free her, we'd have to replicate the rhythm perfectly. Every step, every pause, every tap. One misstep and we'd become part of the building, trapped forever. We started moving, step by step. Top, top, perse, top. The building shuddered, walls groaning, shadows twisting violently. The woman followed, mirroring our steps. And then, the static peaked. A scream, not human, not fully echoing, but distorted, horrifying. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, the building was quiet. The top floor collapsed behind us, the hallway no longer warped. The woman, finally free, stepped down beside us. Her eyes were human again, alive. She whispered, trembling, "Thank you." We didn't wait. We left Alder Apartments that night, and this time we didn't look back. But in the dead of night, when the wind rattles a window or a floorboard creaks, I still hear it faintly. Tap, tap, pause, tap. And I know the echoes never truly die. After that night, Clara and I never returned to Alder Apartments. But the memory of the building, the echoes, and the pale woman haunted us. We knew that even though she was free, the building wasn't entirely destroyed. Something lingered in the walls, in the ceiling, in the rhythm of the footsteps. We spent the next few weeks documenting everything. The building's history, Moreau's experiments, the notes of past tenants, everything we could find. We compiled them into a thick folder, cross-referencing dates, names, and incidents. The pattern was clear. The echoes had been growing stronger over the decades, feeding on fear, curiosity, and the attention of those who entered the building. One evening, as we sat in Clara's apartment reviewing our notes, I heard a faint sound. Top, top, top. I froze. My heart raced. Clara looked at me, eyes wide. Do you hear it? I nodded. It's coming from outside. We ran to the window. Across the street, Alder Apartments sat dark and silent, but the sound persisted, faint, rhythmic. Top, top, top. I realized then that freeing the woman hadn't destroyed the building. It had only changed the rhythm. The echoes were dormant, but they were still there, waiting. Clara grabbed my arm. Do you think it's trying to find someone else? I swallowed hard. Yes, and if it can't find a tenant, it might reach for someone who knows its rhythm. We decided to test it. We set up recording equipment, motion sensors, and microphones outside the building. The next night, the footsteps began again. Louder this time, more deliberate. Top, top, top. Clara followed the rhythm with a metronome. I noted every deviation, every pattern change. It was as if the building were learning, adjusting to our actions. And then we saw it. A shadow moving behind a top-floor window. Pale, thin, stitched face. Not the woman we freed, something else. New. She's different, Clara whispered. The footsteps quickened, vibrating through the walls and into the street. Top, top, top. They weren't just warnings anymore. They were testing us, measuring our reactions. We realized that Alder Apartments wasn't just haunted, it was intelligent. A living entity, feeding on the echoes of its victims, waiting for the right rhythm to ensnare its next prey. We recorded everything, planning to warn the city, the neighbors, anyone who might enter. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't stop. The building waits. It listens. It adapts. And eventually, someone will make a mistake, follow the rhythm incorrectly, and become the next echo. Clara and I left the recordings with the library and local archives, a warning in plain sight, hoping someone would understand. That night, when the city slept, I lay in bed and heard it again. Tap, tap, pause, tap. I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if it's for Clara. All I know is that the echoes never die. They just wait for the next tenant to walk upstairs. Months passed. Clara and I tried to live normal lives, but the rhythm never left me. Every time I stepped on a creaking floorboard, every time I heard distant tapping in an empty street, I flinched. Top, top, top. We began receiving anonymous messages. At first, small notes slipped under our doors. Then emails, photos of empty hallways, of ceilings with faint, wet footprints, of mirrors reflecting shapes that weren't there. All unsigned, all pointing back to Alder Apartments. One night, I sat alone, reviewing the recordings we had left in the archives. Top, top, top. It was there in the background, faint but unmistakable. The rhythm, persistent. Clara called me, voice trembling. It's back. I heard it in my apartment, on the ceiling. I think it followed me. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew the truth. Alder Apartments wasn't confined to its walls. The echoes had learned they could follow, feed, and hunt through sound itself. We returned to the city together, desperate to check on the building. Alder Apartments loomed, dark and silent, yet alive. The top floor windows flickered, shadows moving behind them, observing us. We entered cautiously. The lobby was quiet, empty. The stairwells were familiar, yet warped, stretching beyond reason. Top, top, top. Following the rhythm, we reached the top floor. It was destroyed, charred from the old fire, yet the shadows moved with purpose. The woman we had freed appeared, her face pale, stitched eyes wide in warning. She's different now, she whispered. The building, it's learning faster. It's adapting. Before we could react, the shadows surged. Shapes formed, twisting faces, wet, stitched together, all whispering our names. The floor groaned, walls vibrating with the rhythm. Top, top, top. Clara grabbed my arm. We need to leave now. I nodded. We ran, step by step, keeping to the rhythm. Top, top, top. The building tried to mislead us, warping hallways, stretching doors into impossibilities, but we kept the pattern. We burst into the street. Outside, the city looked normal and different, but as we turned to look back, Alder Apartments shifted. The top floor reformed, windows black, shadows reaching outward as if the building itself were exhaling. Clara whispered, "It's alive." I nodded. "And it's patient. It waits for the next tenant. It learns from each failure, each escape." We were lucky barely. We walked away, but the rhythm followed, faint in the back of my mind. "Top, top, top." I could hear it in Clara's voice when she called, in the hum of fluorescent lights, in the distant echo of footsteps in empty streets. Alder Apartments wasn't just a building. It was an experiment perfected over decades. And experiments don't end. They evolve. Weeks later, I saw a for rent sign in front of a nearby building. The agent was cheerful, showing an empty top floor apartment. "Top, top, top." I knew someone would move in soon, and the cycle would start again. The echoes never die. They just wait for the next tenant to walk upstairs.